Hello, and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast on the internet that has the science and the screaming to determine what is the single greatest movie of any given year. My name is Ryan, and I will be your host for tonight, the final regular season episode of 1985. It has been a crazy year. I am sad to see it go, but I am excited to watch the ending as in next week or a couple weeks from now, we're going to decide which of these 8 movies are the movie of the year and hand out awards to the craziest range of movies that have ever been collected in one grouping. Last week, we had, I think, something very special happen where we had a tie. No winners or losers were determined. And so what I've done is I have held a lottery. And I said, both of those people, you guys aren't on the show this week, and I held a lottery, and we have 2 new people to come in. Tonight we are talking about Akira Kurosawa's Ron. That's right, Akira Kurosawa made a movie in 85, just in case you thought this season couldn't get any crazier. And I have got 2 new challengers to come in and see who is best at talking about Akira Kurosawa's Ron. Our first team, the green team, is Greg. Are you ready, Greg?
That was well, I don't know if I'm again, sometimes the sound I think kind of makes promises that are hard to deliver on. I don't know if I can be as cool as that, but I am ready to talk about a fucking samurai movie, dude. I am ready to do this.
Now, Greg, you were here last week. Good lottery doings.
Yeah.
Are you going to buy lotto tickets, or do you think your luck starts and ends right here?
To be honest, I do know how to defeat any lottery, but I've decided not to do that because I don't want to pursue monetary gain. I just want to appear on podcasts.
And, of course, the winner of each episode of Movie of the Year does get a $100,000 check. So,
yeah, you can't cash it, but it just looks really cool. Imagine you're looking at a check that says 100,000 on it. That would be so crazy. Like, imagine that much money.
I get those in the mail all the time. Just they're saying that I should take out a $100,000 loan from this very upstanding company, but so they send me the check that I could get the real version of soon. Greg, unfortunately, I would love to sit here and talk to you about loans.
It would be great.
And
it would
Ron
be great.
all night, but
just a little back and forth.
If you look at the other side of the stadium,
it
is the purple team, Mike. Mike, are you ready for this shit?
I'm so ready. I really like how the different sounds our technical director chose. I do think encapsulate.
It's
Greg
Peter the
has,
Wolf shit going on right now, right?
Yeah, Greg is has that gravitas that the drums, and I am just like this piercing, shrieking whistle of a person.
You're everyone's favorite firework, the Piccolo Pete.
I do like that we're going to be the first podcast to use leitmotif.
All right, guys, before we get into the competition, before you guys start battling it out for points and fighting for your own honor, your own colors, your own flags, and hopefully treating your elder statesmen better than some of the armies did in Ron.
That fucking ship has sailed, Ryan.
That's the one lesson I took from this.
Okay, keep in mind that the patriarch of the family in Ron didn't have a point scoring system. And I do. So maybe that's where he fucked up.
I feel like he did. It was clear that Saburo was winning a favorite son in the beginning of the movie.
Which is weird because he was such a little fucking fucker.
Dude,
yeah.
that guy was
He
kind
likes
of a
to
little
scam.
piece of shit, dude. That guy fucked everything up.
Before we
blue
get
team.
into the nitty and or the gritty, and we are going to talk a lot about what would this movie be like if gritty was in this movie. What do you guys think overall? Was this your first Kurosawa experience, and does this fit into the 1985 season that we've been having so far?
I see a lot of parallels between this and After Hours, I think.
I mean, well, I don't know if you're saying that in jest. It kind of sounded like you did, but I mean, he's wandering through the land, and he's like, is this hell? Am I in hell? Like, am I being punished for the things that I did for being such a terrible person? What's exciting about this movie, in a way, is that I felt the text connections to, every other movie that we've seen. Okay, maybe not the ones... Maybe not like Goonies and stuff, but
No, come on. Again, the adventures.
The ones that we got really riled about, honestly. I felt
This
like
is... Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. This is 100% the three members of the younger generation saying "fuck the older generation." This is our time. It's their time up there, but it's our time right now.
So even Goonies, or I mean, I guess it does connect to Back to the Future, right? Because Back to the Future is like, you think people were so good back in the day, they were actually vicious and venial the same way they are now. And this movie is about the same thing, right? It's about how you don't feel bad for this old guy because he was a piece of shit like for so long.
I saw not our movies, but the whole time it was hard to get Thor Ragnarok out of my head. Maybe because I've rewatched that in the last month or so. But the youngest kid is Hella, because he's saying, you want to be peaceful and old and us to be loyal to you now, Dad, but you were a bloodthirsty monster our whole life, so why should we treat you with respect? That's just Thor, baby. So if you like Thor Ragnarok, check out Ron.
Or was he ever leveling with him there? He was really just giving him the straight dope. Like, he's a piece of shit, but that was him being like very, very like, here's the problem with your thinking, Dad. Like, you trained us to be wild dogs, and so now we are. You can't ask us not to be. And he's like, that's offensive.
Yeah, it's every movie is either you have a terrible father or you have one that was there, and then it's the father going, "Oh shit, I shouldn't have. If I wasn't around, they'd probably be better off. I would still be alive in New Orleans selling daiquiris or something." I want to get into this so bad, but so let's just go with the basics. Were you guys impressed by this movie? Do you guys think that it's in the upper echelon of the season or all of movie of the year, or was there like stuff left to be desired?
I was blown away.
This is fun. I like when we're on not exactly the same feeling because Kurosawa, I think maybe this is dumb, but he did Seven Samurai, right?
He did.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one I'd seen like 20 years ago.
Kurosawa is Seven Samurai, Bicycle Thief, Citizen Kane, and Trainspotting, and Transformers 2.
Oh, I've seen all of those but Transformers 2, thankfully.
I've seen this guy's whole oeuvre.
It is, from what I remember, Seven Samurai I really dug, and this feels like, I don't know, maybe because he was old, that I think there's a lot to be desired in this film.
Old and blind. Like, he had a lot of shit going on.
Is that why the bright colors?
That's why the bright colors, yeah. Otherwise, he didn't know what was going on. Making fun of blind people. Guys, let's just dive into it. So when we come back, Akira Kurosawa's Ron. Probably the first thing people think of when they think of Akira Kurosawa's Ron is the sleepy little stage drama King Lear by a friend of the show, Willie Shakes. Not yet in the Pop Filter Hall of Fame.
Not
Undeserving. But focusing on Lear puts this movie in a box that is just way too small for something this epic. In the same weird way that this show began at the end of Kubrick's career, we begin at the end with Kurosawa's. Ron may not literally be his last movie, in the way that The Tempest is not the last of Shakespeare's plays. But it's hard not to see this movie as Kurosawa signing off in a way, a reflection on what it means to set aside your work as an older person and confront what your life amounted to. And holy shit, this guy could make a movie. Ron seems like the work of a master who hasn't seen his talents cool in the least, but who now has the patience, wisdom, and courage to make a movie that is full of bold choices. From staging shots where hundreds of horsemen charge through a river, to shooting mountaintop meetings from what seems like miles away, to a sequence where we can watch a castle burn to the ground as a ghostly old man stumbles from it. So, Taste Buds, I want to start here. I want to talk about how a movie that was made in the 80s, that takes place in the 1500s, sort of shines a light on the 2020s and what it's like for 2020 audiences, which is something that we don't talk about, I don't think, enough. Of like, we're recommending these movies for everyone. This is a different movie than I think a lot of people have seen, and I want to start with the pacing and the performances. What did you guys feel? How did you guys feel about the structure of the movie and the performances? And did it leave you cold and wanting more, or did you start to gel right away?
The pacing, I kind of knew what I was getting into. I've got used to that. Like, samurai movies are like westerns that they say action in the description, but that does not mean the same thing Fast and Furious action means. It's going to be very slow, and so give you a lot of time to think about what everything means and what they're doing. The pacing I was on board with. The performances are what got me, because if you're like, okay, maybe this is like Shakespeare's Lear, and I know we're not supposed to talk about that much. It's the broadest, biggest, even when there should be like quiet, dramatic, emotional moments, they are playing to the back of the house on camera. It is huge performances, and that took me a long time to get into.
Took you a long time. Okay. I just, having seen a lot of movies from Kurosawa, I was thinking about this while I was watching it. I was thinking that I'm loving this, but Mike is so dumb. I don't know if he's going to. Greg, are you dumb?
Wow, lot of runway there. Here
Just say no.
Oh no, I'm not dumb, Ryan. But I do think that what Mike said was dumb. First off, if you're gonna stage a Shakespeare play, you have to like come with a fresh take. And I want to say that. And second off, I don't know. We're not knowledgeable enough about Japanese artistic history to really understand maybe some of the choices that were made in this. But what I like as like just sort of an impartial, ignorant person who likes to look at things, what I liked was about the performance of the main character, Hede Toro, I think. The way their names look in English doesn't look to me anything like how the characters say people's names. So he goes by Toro a lot, so I'm going to call him that. The performance is a big decision. It's broad, and it's almost like a form of clowning. And I think that was a choice. When we're talking about like Lear and the Fool form like a dramatic, twosome, right? And so I think he is using sort of like clown body language. The one thing is, I do think personally, for my taste, he started a little big and didn't leave himself a ton of places to go. But
yeah, it's like when you're singing "Take on Me."
Yeah.
You got to start low because the end of that chorus gets super high, and you want to be able to hit it.
I think something we have to remember about this movie is it's not that we like see him just starting to go crazy. He's already obviously pretty crazy when it starts, and so that's why I think the performance is so out there. I found it arresting. It took me a while to get into it, specifically his performance. But when I got there, I don't know. It's a movie, It's not a window into a reality. It's a hyper real. And by pushing the performance into a kind of like crazy, uncomfortable space, I felt more deeply connected to it.
I think what part of it is his is so big and broad and different, and everybody leans a little bigger than most of the films we've watched throughout this, except maybe like The Goonies or Breakfast Club. But him and Kade,
Lady K,
the white Lady K, who jumps husbands, she also has a very gripping performance. And then how bold and big their two performances are really highlights like everybody else is just here too is often what it feels like.
But yeah, it seems like that we're sort of agreeing in a way of disagreeing of like this movie is big in every single way.
Yeah.
Like the camera's big, the story's big, the plays that inspired it are big. Like there's so much that's big about it. And like this is a guy who like his favorite go-to actor was Toshiro Mifune, who has never been subtle in his entire life. This is a guy who this is not neo-realism. This is a guy who loves big movies.
But it's a choice, right? I mean, obviously, right? Like it's like he could do it the other way if he wanted to, but he likes to do it this way.
So it's like watching a Tarantino movie and being like, nobody talks like this. And it's like, yeah, no shit. Shut up. Just watch the fucking movie.
Yeah, I think that's it. Exactly. Yeah. He wants to get to some sort of truth that is beyond just like turning a camera on reality. He wants to get to like what it really feels like to live through reality. And this is a people as depicted in this movie that are like naturally very dramatic. Like the whole way they like flare their robes, the way they interact with their swords. It's like they're kind of always on stage. And so then to like have any drama in addition to that, if you are going to basically every time you move like a performer, then when you give a performance or when you act, you're gonna like be even like bigger for that, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's so many rules that they all have, no matter where they are in the hierarchy, stated in the movie and unstated, that it would be impossible to not be on. Like the one person we see who like is just a person is the blind kid, who's just like, I'm too far gone to care about any of your bullshit rules. Let me play my flute.
The way he goes and gets like that blanket and then just drops it, like, here's your fucking blanket.
It felt like he was essentially saying, I wasn't even introduced until like 2 hours into this movie. So
Yeah.
why would I give a fuck about any of this shit?
You guys told me to be ready months ago, and I've just been here.
But like, I think at least in the top 10 reasons, maybe not number one, but in the top 10 reasons of why Kurosawa endures is because he's one of these few directors who made these like super complex, very nuanced films that could also be like a rousing good time in the theater.
Yeah,
you know?
dude,
And I think that the acting is part of it. I did a lot of reading this week about the differences between no theater, NOH,
Yeah.
and kabuki theater. And no theater was something that Kurosawa was very much into, which is almost no forward momentum narratively, and it was a lot of masks and like interpretive dancing. And he thought that kabuki theater was bullshit because it was just like big broad soap opera. And I like, after the reading, I see what he gets from the no. I see what he gets from like the quiet. I like the quiet, and I like the give the audience a chance to interpret and have the artist create art. But he's fucking full of shit if he thinks that he's not getting
This is the
so much
soapiest shit
kabuki.
in the world.
Yeah.
How are you going to have that arterial blood spray and then be like,
God
really, I
damn.
just like the quiet? Because here's what I like about him as an artist.
Also, it was basically illegal. Like, according to the rules of no theater, it was illegal to show blood at all. You couldn't even hint at the fact that there is blood in our body. And kabuki theater was nonstop. Cut blood,
Yeah.
sword, blood.
One of the things I really respect about him, and again, this is the only movie of his I've seen, but I got an impression of the man from just watching the movie, is he looks at the whole toolbox of cinema and he's like, I'm gonna use all this shit, dude. If
Yeah,
you're gonna go
for sure.
see a movie, then you want to have an emotional experience, but you also want to see these huge shots where hundreds of people move around because that looks kind of dope, and you want to see cool sword fights because that looks dope, and you want these shots that are composed like so meticulously. That's why, like, some of the shots, the way they're composed in this movie, you couldn't have people acting normally in a shot like that because they are like, they're balanced beyond the ability to balance a shot with space and negative space and what's going on in them.
And this is definitely one of those movies where you could pick almost any frame and frame it. Like, I want, especially because the bright primary colors, and it really helps keep the giant teams, and I guess they're called armies, separate when they're fighting because they all have one color. But,
Motherfucker definitely had gone to medieval times and understands how that works. Like, teams have different colors.
It was I have heard about him that just because watching this movie, like just like looking into him a little bit, he told all his actors have like a tick so that when people see you on screen, they'll see your tick and they'll be like, oh, I remember who that guy is. I think he abandoned that in this movie for just like, when you see yellow, you will know that you are looking at Taro. When you see red, you are definitely looking at Hiro or his men. And dude, I loved it. It was so easy to follow what was going on.
I want all movies to have that.
Yellow is the kind of cool collected guy, right? Like, if you see yellow, let it mellow. That was basically the point.
Oh yeah, that guy
movie.
was mellow as shit, dude. Taro, he had the best facial hair in the whole movie.
Let's go from 2020 audiences to just the world of 2020. What was it like watching a 70-year-old dude make a movie 35 years ago and then about our world today?
Yeah, well, I will say this 75-year-old dude has his finger on the pulse more than a lot of septuagenarians, where he is saying it is the old people's fault the way the youth is, instead of how dare the youth speak back to us.
This idea that you're going to be an old man who ruined the world and then be like, I don't understand why you don't just call me like the greatest generation.
I did it. Tell me I did it.
Yeah, like
compliment me.
It has to be everything. It has to be not just that you were like domineering and vicious and violent your whole life, but now as an old man, we have to act like you were loving and wonderful on top of it.
Yeah, it's real crazy that he just predicted George W. and Trump. Like we're going through both of the different phases of that old man right now. But
I mean, like, fans of, and I don't want to make it seem like I think of every movie that I watch in the same way, but fans of W and fans of Trump are all sort of from the same generation mostly. You're either if you're not a boomer, then you're just a fucking out and out Nazi skinhead. So, and it's just, the movie's about how, you know, boomers all our lives said we work so hard to make the world better for you so you can take over, and then in actuality, when it's time to step aside, they're just like, no, No, we're in fact going to hold on to all the power we can, and even if that is the worst thing possible, even if that means the world burns, we're never going to fucking step aside and admit that it's now a new generation's time.
Mm-hmm.
Like his sons are dicks,
Yeah.
but so much of this could have been, gotten around if he was like, all right, I quit. And also, I actually fucking quit. I'm going to actually quit, and he just refuses to die.
He quit, and then a day later, his guards bow to the new queen, like the new lord, and he's like, "Why? Why would they do that? Why are they doing that in my sight right now?" And everybody's like, "Well, she's the lady of the house." He's like, "I do not give a shit. I'm still here. You do not bow to anybody else."
I mean, this is early on in the movie when we still think Lady K is just, typical like first lady.
Yeah,
and she's like, "We should probably get it in writing." And even that, and his right-hand man, the patriarch's right-hand man is like, well, it is everything that you said yesterday.
Yeah.
All you're doing is signing the thing that you said yesterday. And he's still like, this is fucking insane. I was drunk and full of shit, and they should still be under me forever.
Watching, because each one of the dad and the three brothers all have a right-hand man, and watching their right-hand men interact with their lord and how they tiptoe around it is fucking fascinating, for sure. And each one
2020, I would say.
Oh yeah, and like how much do you push back? How much and again, it's Tango is the best. Is even though like I don't agree with all of the things he believes in, he's the best because he will speak up when he knows it needs to be pushed back on, and be smart enough to not get killed for it.
Even if it gets him banished, right?
Yeah,
and then when he gets banished, he'll be like, "I'll just come back later."
Yeah, I'll just do what's
with
right.
a bunch of food.
Yeah,
like he goes out.
No, that's not okay. That's not okay though. We should starve.
That was the weirdest scene where they're like, "We need food," and they're like, "Oh God, all the villagers left." And then he shows up again with food, and then the guy's like, "Burn their villages."
Yeah, we
they
should
try
probably
to give
burn
us.
their villages. They helped us.
Well, what he should have done is bring money. I think that the right combination is Tango and cash. That would have made everybody happy.
Ryan, come on, you're not gonna give yourself a point there.
I'll do one. I'll do one quick one, maybe like 1 second one.
I do want to make a direct to 2020 audiences who like, I don't know, this is too old. You guys seem dumb. If you like Succession, you will like this because it's just about an awful family tearing itself apart. So just vibe it.
Also, if you like big meadows where the grass gently sways, and if you like people who like have a plan and then no one ever sees them coming until they're like executing the last parts of their plan and it's already way too late, like that, this is like such a exciting, fun movie. And I guess I didn't expect that, and I think that's part of like what the box that Lear maybe puts it in. Lear's fine. It's obviously it's a great play, but I've seen it a lot. I've read it a lot. This movie is offering you way more than the King Lear experience. The only thing people should say about this movie is they burned a castle to the ground and filmed it. Like that's the pitch you need to see this movie. If you can't have fun in a movie where a castle literally burns to the ground, then I don't know why you go to the movies at all. Like I don't know
they had
what
to
you
do
wanna
it in
see.
one take because we're really burning this real castle.
You can't just be like that old man from Contact who's like, why build one space station when you can build two for twice the price? They had that one fucking castle, and they probably shouldn't have even had that. But yeah, like it sort of does just have it all. It's got all, like that castle burning scene is 6 minutes long, 7 minutes long of nonstop violence. Violence that starts with one of the greatest weapons, bows and arrows, and then at some point somebody's like, "Oh fuck, we have guns," and then the guns come out. It's so thrilling.
That transition really seemed like guns were being invented because they just suddenly showed up out of nowhere so long into the movie. They're like, "No, try these now, try these, and it'll actually fuck people up."
And then when that one team had a tank, like that seemed like way too much. Unfair. One more thing I want to get to real quick, and we sort of already hinted on this with the talk of the baby boomers and generations, but this movie hits on a lot of traditions. And how much do you think Kurosawa is interested in traditions, and are they good, are they bad, and how much do they control our lives?
Yeah, I think that there's several different paths of tradition here. That there is like the hierarchy. They kind of hint at a religion and then one of the Sue is Buddhist, so that they are hinting at and they're kind of anti her because she's different.
And Buddha here is like the rock and roll hippie religion, right?
Yeah, back when like Buddha and Jesus were cool.
I think the rest are like Shinto.
But and they kind of mock their own religion sometimes, but it really does seem like the movie and therefore Kurosawa is saying anything that makes you just blindly follow it is stupid, which is kind of what I think tradition is well, this is how people did it before, so we do it, because even though some of them mock it, they keep doing it.
It's hard to not think of the last image of the movie, which is the poor blinded brother standing on like the very edge of a cliff, and he drops the scroll that has the picture of the Buddha on it, and here he is like perilously on the edge of the cliff with no one to guide him, and this scroll with just a simple picture of Buddha, it has a luster to it, but what is it? I mean, what's it offering him in that one moment? What is it? It's not even comfort to him. It's nothing. He just drops it to the ground like it's garbage. I mean, I mean, that's the way in which he kind of like drops it on the ground, and then what's going to become of him? He's probably going to fall off that cliff eventually, right? I mean, so
he'll find some way to die, and very soon.
Yeah,
like,
that
even
seems,
if he saves himself from that cliff, he's a goner.
That seems like a grim ending. I mean, that we watch that Buddha go from like a place in a shrine where it's actively like prayed at in the sun, and you can see like the luster of the pure sun on it, all the way to like just discarded in ruins as everybody marches into like the gloaming darkness.
Is that dark. Scene more subtle than in Stephen King's It, where the whole thing is all about fear and dealing with fear, and then right at the end Pennywise just looks at everyone and says the word fear? Is it basically the same thing?
Yes. I have to say it is yet another way in which Kurosawa is a lot like Shakespeare. I think that he's like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be abstruse here. Like, I'll tell you exactly what I mean to say in this, because I want this to be for everybody. I want it for it to be the people that read texts very deeply, and the people who just come to kind of just get entertained and just see something.
Party.
Yeah.
And some people can pull that off, and most people cannot. Like,
yeah. Well, it's hard. I mean,
Shakespeare or Kurosawa, if you're going to do that.
One thing he really does, Kurosawa, is he makes the very difficult things look like they're just like super easy. Like he just like threw the camera down in a corner and all the lines were perfect, or like he just lined up these 500 men and just had them march through. It's just like, it'll be easy, just do it. And that's his like master's hand on it.
A lot of that came from 10 years of pre-production.
Yeah.
That'll help.
It's funny. I know he was deeply embittered because it was hard to get financing for his movies. Bro, you want to have 500 extras and burn down a castle? Like,
yeah,
do something like Mishima. Like, go get on a soundstage. Like,
yeah,
what are you
just
doing?
Like a dinner at Andre. Have two people at a diner talk for a while.
And I know why. I know he would be like, no, you shouldn't do that. Movies should be big and epic. And he's right, but that's why it's hard to get money for him.
All right, guys, we got to take a break. We have to stop talking about Ron for a second. But I have good news. Mount Rushmore, right? You guys love Mount Rushmore.
We love Mount Rushmore.
I love the game Mount Rushmore.
It's not problematic at all.
Not the thing. Coming up next.
Mount Rushmore!
That's right, motherfuckers. It's Rushmore time. The real Mount Rushmore is 4 presidents and soon to be a 5th. Did you guys, as of this recording, hear what just happened?
No.
I think it was Pence and not even Trump went to visit somebody in North Dakota, and they had a tiny replica of Mount Rushmore with 5 heads on it instead of 4.
Who's the 5th?
Who's the 5th? Ryan, who is the 5th?
The 5th was a Ghostbuster, which segues directly into what we're doing tonight. One of my favorite parts of every season is when we do the Ghostbusters of the year. Ghostbusters was a 1984 movie that had the 4 titans of comedy.
Uh-huh.
We're doing 1 year later, and I can almost say right now that none of them will make it.
Yeah.
So is it just like a career death choice, being in a Ghostbusters movie?
I don't think it did anything for them in the moment, in the immediate moment.
Well, they all got Ghostbusters too.
Yeah, they are, and they really landed that plane. They really did a great job with Ghostbusters 2. I feel like Ghostbusters 2 revealed that they didn't even know what was good about Ghostbusters 1. They were like, you know what, we should do this same thing, but make it like way bigger and way dumber.
Way more pink slime. Way more dancing pink slime.
Way more dancing toasters.
Everything should have way more dancing toasters.
So this is a little bit different of a Rushmore. Typically it's 4 heads of the most iconic whatever. This actually has a 5th because we always do the Rick Moranis role. And also tonight we're going to start a new wrinkle. You get a point if you get somebody on the mountain. But if you're able, guys, I've got somebody in my head that's so fucking Ryan that if you nominate him and he gets on, or she gets on, and they probably will because I'm in charge, That's going to be 3 points instead of just the one.
Damn.
Wish I was good
Now-
at guessing things now.
This is a tie. It was a tie last week. I don't know who to go to first. So, Mike, flip a coin. You're up first.
I think, hearkening to the tradition of Ghostbusters to have SNL characters and quite a famous gentleman at the time, and people seem to love Fletch, I think Chevy Chase would be the perfect asshole-ish Ghostbuster.
Chevy Chase was dominating the 85. We were somehow able to avoid
Mhm.
all Chevy Chase movies when we did this season.
Thankfully.
But is this just a slam dunk? Like, people fucking loved Chevy Chase.
I think he would, not to argue for Mike, but I do think he'd bring a very interesting energy to it. What if you had that blaster, but then also you were kind of like a klutz and you were always falling down, and you just like be very unimpressed with like seeing ghosts and everything? Maybe kind of the Bill Murray role he could do.
I would
for
say
sure.
definitely the Bill Murray
Yeah.
role.
Because didn't Murray replace Chase on SNL?
Yes.
So,
He came into the second season when
full
Chevy Chase
circle.
blew up.
Circle of
Also the guy with the most streets named after him. Like, every city has a Chevy Chase drive or street, and that's pretty impressive.
That's so fucking weird.
Greg, now it's your turn for a slam dunk. Who do you got?
I know we're not really supposed to do it where we like pitch people for like the specific roles of the Ghostbusters, even though we just kind of instantly did do that, and we do that every single time. But there's a guy from 85 who I think would be really good in the Egon role, and it's Christopher Lloyd. I think I remember Christopher Lloyd being like very good in Back to the Future, but dude, that guy dominated that movie. And I just feel like he could bring some of that Doc Brown energy to our new Ghostbusting squad.
How many scenes will we get where they know where the ghosts are, they know what the building looks like? Christopher Lloyd's character builds a full-scale model and then apologizes for not having time to paint it. Right now, I'm trying to put butts in seats, so I think that like it's a great candidate, but I'm going to put him maybe for right now.
Ooh.
Mike, where are we going?
I want to change it up a little, and this actor, she dominated stand-up forever, and 85 is where she like really, really, really blew up. And
Judy
continued on.
Tenuta?
It's Judy Tenuta. But I think Whoopi Goldberg's energy mixed with Chevy Chase's would be a great comic addition, and we know she can act, so maybe there's like a good dramatic monologue towards the end of the second act there. And she's like, "No, Ghost, you got to get out of here. We don't want you anymore."
I love when we talk about Whoopi as a like very funny person, as an EGOTer, right? As opposed to
Mhm.
just another like annoying voice on The View. But I think that Color Purple, which came out in 85, was her debut movie. I think she might be a couple of years away from getting
Damn it.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I don't think you're
status.
going to get butts in the seat that way. But she'd be
There
so
weren't
good in it.
stand-up nerds then.
She's actually on my list too, Mike, because she would be really good at it. She's good in basically everything she does. She can do dramatic acting. She, as you said, she's got the comedy chops.
She has experience with ghosts.
Yeah,
5
dude.
years after this year.
All right.
Greg, what do you got?
I thought Mike was going to scoop this guy up, so I'm going to jump in and do it because we're trying to get butts in seats. I'm going to say Eddie Murphy. When you were saying Saturday Night Live, I thought that's where you were going. He was very big at the moment, and I think that he could bring just a great energy to it. Watching him just react to everything going on, he would be like sort of the counterpoint to the dryness of who was the other guy, Chevy Chase. You know. Be really big and bold and everything. And yeah, you're just gonna if you say at this time Eddie Murphy, you're getting people in the theater.
All you have to do is say it. Just put it on your poster, even if he's
Even
not
if
in the
you're
movie.
not even if you're
Eddie
not
Murphy's heard of this movie.
Yeah, even if you're not indicating that he's in the movie.
He just wrote with a pen, and he was supposed to be in the original.
The original Ghostbusters?
Yeah, he was supposed to be Winston.
Oh my god.
So what they said, it was like Eddie Murphy deserves to be in the whole movie. Ernie Hudson,
Yeah.
half the movie. You're half the Eddie Murphy.
That would also be the other nice thing is Ernie, maybe they could like have him be in the whole time and be like a full-fledged Ghostbuster and not have like parts where they forget he's even around.
Mike, what do you got?
I think similar background to the SNL thing, but a little different. I don't know if butts and seats, but people fucking love him, is John Candy. He did the SCTV, and he was about to be in every fucking comedy movie ever.
I love this. I love John Candy, period. And I love the dynamic that we have so far. Like, right now, we've got two guys just vying for screen time and punchlines. and I think John Candy would sort of work well in the background and pop off from there. I don't know. I kind of like it.
He would definitely bring a Slimer energy to the whole thing. But he'd be on a completely different wavelength than the other two people we've put on it so far, and I think that gives you sort of like the spectrum that you need in a cast. But I don't think you should put him on, Ryan. No.
I already hit the mic button.
Dang it. So I'm so honorable, Ryan. That's the thing.
You really are.
Yeah.
All right, Greg. One more before the speed round. Who's your best that you have left?
Good golly. Okay, this is a butts and seats pick, but I think he can also do it. He's obviously an action star, but he's an action comedy star. It's Harrison Ford. We are gonna get people showing up to see Harrison Ford.
Funny? What do you think Harrison Ford funny? Like, what's a good funny line that he's ever delivered?
Okay, in The Force Awakens, when Finn's like, oh, I just was trying to get us just to this point. I don't know what we're gonna do now. Let's use the Force. And Harrison Ford looks at him and goes, "That's not how the Force works." That's a very funny moment.
That was a pretty good Harrison Ford.
Thank you.
No Ticket from Last Crusade.
Yeah.
That was pretty good delivery, right?
Yeah, dude.
Like,
For sure he
throws
throws
a guy
somebody
out.
out of a plane.
No Ticket. Mike, you got anything for Harrison Ford funny moments? I'm switching the Rushmore to 4 most iconic Harrison Ford.
Yeah, there's a "Get off my goddamn plane"
Or
when he was the
from
president.
Air Force One.
Or where he's like, "I didn't kill my wife." Remember?
Yeah, that was
That's hilarious.
hilarious.
Also from Air Force One. All right, Mike, do you have anybody you want to throw on here?
I never remember. Am I allowed to do Rick Moranis roles right now, or do we wait on that?
Not yet.
Okay, then I'm gonna say he's hot, he's young. There's all these cool older grumpy Ghostbusters. Why not just Michael J. Fox in on there, and he'll bring all the kids in.
Greg?
Such a good one. This is going to sound ridiculous now, but I want to bring it up because I make this point every time I can. Steve Guttenberg. They built franchises around fucking Steve Guttenberg. There's a Simpsons song from the early 90s that refers to Steve Guttenberg as a, quote, star, unquote. And we have just absolutely forgotten it. He just happened to be on Last Week Tonight recently. They paid him through the app Cameo to do a couple of different
From Cameo,
things.
yeah.
But, like, and as he says in it, I was in 3 Men and a Baby. 3 Men and a Baby was fucking huge, you guys. And he was like the centerpiece of Police Academy, The Goots.
So I had two people that I had to see on this Rushmore, and it was Michael J. Fox and Steve Guttenberg. If we're going full 85, so I don't know what to do here. I'm thinking about kicking off John Candy and removing a point from Mike.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Fuck. Okay. But I think ultimately, if we're going the 85 that I want to see, it is Michael J. Fox that gets it. The Ryan threesome is still up in the air. If you guys are down.
That hasn't happened yet?
It hasn't happened yet, so let's get to the Rick Moranis role. This is the nerdy sidekick, comedy, relief, maybe future Ghostbuster. Who do we have? Mike.
I think for 85, filling all of that energy, and even more, they're starting to be like, oh, kids matter. He already owned 85, and I think this would just cement it, is Anthony Michael Hall.
You jerk.
This is a hard one. This is a hard one to beat.
Such a fucking jerk.
Will he, so this would be the third movie he's in 85.
Mm-hmm.
Will he, for the third movie in 85, do a terribly racist, like get high or drunk and do a racist black guy voice?
I hope not. I hope for his and our sake.
You know, we never really got to talk about on this show, so let's take this opportunity. The fact that Anthony Michael Hall, was basically became a millionaire playing dorks, but then, it drove him crazy because he's like, I'm actually really cool. And so then he, went on MTV and stuff where he tried to affect a really cool persona that was it was like in Breakfast Club when he acts all cool with the sunglasses on. And that's just the saddest thing in the world. Why do these actors who play dorks, because the actor that did Urkel did it, the actor that even, the Bud Bunny actor, they always want to be like, let's have something happen where an alternate dimension cool version of me comes out so I can show everybody that I'm actually very cool.
For some reason, it's quarantine, I don't know, I watched This Is the End. Do you guys remember that was a movie where the Ghostbusters of that particular year all played themselves during the apocalypse, and Michael Cera literally said all of that to Seth Rogen. And it turned out great. Michael Cera steals the movie. At one point, he's getting blown and his ass eaten out in a bathroom. And Jay Baruchel comes in, and Michael Cera looks at him and says, like, "Oh, do you have to go to the bathroom? Go ahead, use the toilet, honey." And the way he says "honey," it's fucking comic gold.
While the Michael Cera works, he is also kind of pathetic throughout the whole time. He's acting like a person who thinks he's cool.
Yeah,
he's not playing cool. Where
it's so
Stefan
weird
or
though.
Cal.
It's so weird though because he doesn't seem to fully care that he's not as cool as he's acting. And so then there's kind of another layer where he also is a little bit cool because even though he seems like such a big stupid phony, he seems kind of comfortable with that. That movie's got layers.
Going back to the AMH, 5 years after 1985, he was cast as the bully in a movie, and he did all of the working out possible, including that way where you work out, where you grow a foot and a half. I don't know how you did that
somehow.
And then, decided that he would take a part where he would just beat the shit out of Johnny Depp, which is what Amber Heard, I guess, recently did. Greg, do you have a different Rick Moranis besides Anthony Michael Hall?
I do, and it is Griffin Dunn. He's got the body type for it. He's got the, kind of like wincing, like always about to maybe get hit or bullied by somebody style humor. He's a bit of an everyman. He would be playing he'd be playing a little bit more of a different role, obviously, than Paul Hackett, but I think he could do it.
This has to go to Mike, though, for Anthony Michael Hall. You guys, the Ryan Award that you missed, you could have gotten 3 points, and this could have worked for Rick Moranis or a normal Ghostbuster, was Pee Wee Herman. I would have loved to see him as
good.
a Ghostbuster.
That's very good.
So your 1985 Ghostbusters are Chevy Chase, Eddie Murphy, John Candy, and Michael J. Fox. Motherfucker, we're going to rack in some business with that. And your Rick Moranis is Anthony Michael Hall. When we come back, I guess we'll go back to talking about Kurosawa. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening so far, and let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com, and it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action, and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show. That's Movie of the Year. And that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review. Bye! Aside from having the most screen time, what else makes this clearly Lord Ichimonji's story? What do we think is Kurosawa's fascination with this character alongside with the character of King Lear? And so for the purposes of this question, we're going to just say it is his story, and then we'll get to other characters maybe later in this segment. But let's start with this one.
It seems like a tour through the life he built himself, by going through the negative space of all the people he cut down and murdered. When you start a story with him already being 70 years old, you leave out a lot of the stuff that he did to get to where he is. And by the end of the movie, you see that he killed the families of both of who his kids are married to.
To which, in the beginning of the movie, he's still like, "Come on, you're over that, right?" Like,
yeah, it's like because it's like that whole Game of Thrones, like, everyone's just kind of messing around, having a lot of fun.
We're all Thrones in.
And so, in the fact that it is almost like with his ghost walking through a tour of all the bad things he did, like a Christmas Carol style.
Yeah,
kind of
Scrooge effect.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think it's an accident that for a lot of this he has the aspect of a ghost. He literally looks, and he keeps saying like, "I feel like I'm in hell." It's so it's kind of like a "this is your life," and if you are very, very awful, then "this is your life" is probably going to break you because it's hard to look at the bad things you've done.
I expected the big drama and the battles and all of that stuff, and I did not expect that he was essentially going to throw Bergman's Wild Strawberries into the movie, and then reading about it later, he was like, Kurosawa was like, "I guess it's King Lear. I don't know. Fine. If you want to say that, cool." But the problem with King Lear is everyone knew how King Lear got to this position, but no one, like, Shakespeare never talked about it. Like, it's important to say, like, you don't get to this spot unless you're a motherfucker.
Yeah, he's kind of seen as like Fortune's fool in King Lear, to take the Romeo and Juliet line. But in this, it's like, this movie interrogates that idea.
And it hits harder because he's somebody who's lived in a bubble for decades upon decades.
The NBA
so
bubble?
So then he finally has to, he's just there, like, writing letters to his wife, maybe, and speaking to a reporter once, and maybe scrimmage. Fuck. What is it? Oh, so he's lived in this bubble for 70 years, and then has to deal with his consequences. So it's not like different people were telling him that he was a piece of shit throughout his life. Nobody ever did.
Yeah.
And then he had to face it.
And here's the problem with the boomers. This is why they're doing it, is because if they finally, like, give up their power, then they'll have to deal with all of this shit. If you stay in power, if you just keep at least one finger, but hopefully a fist, but hopefully two fists on the staff of power, then you just keep moving forward and never have to reflect. And say anything you want about baby boomers or the older generation, but reflection is not something that they know how to do or they're used to if it's forced upon them.
Well, his thing is, like, I'm not going to reflect, too. Like, he's kind of the movie, the action of the movie is making him reflect, but instead he's like, no, I'm just going to go crazy. And it's like, no, bitch.
He would rather go crazy than think about what he's done to anybody.
You don't get to escape that way. You don't get to escape by sleeping. You don't get to escape by being crazy. And in that famous scene where the castle's burning, you don't get to escape by dying yet. Mm-hmm. You have to stand here and look at all the shit you did.
Even towards the end, when Saburo finally finds him, he's like, leave me in my grave, and starts trying to crawl under rocks. Like, he's like, I pushed you away, and you're the only person I want to see right now, but I can't, because then I really have to deal with the fact that I pushed you away for telling me the truth.
Which goes back to so much of the stuff that we talked about in the last segment, the Ghostbusters Mount Rushmore. The first run segment where we were talking about how, like, tradition and loyalty and, man, life could be so easy if I just if I gave up power. I actually did it, and then me and my son, my youngest son, we had it out, and we were best friends, and we could, like, golf and then, like, create a new empire. I just can't because of ego and tradition. Mm-hmm. Like, tradition dictates you can't take a knee, to someone that was taking a knee to you. Like, that's just not how the culture works. And if that's how the culture works, then it's just doomed, or at least you're doomed at some point. You will definitely fall down this pit of despair and never come back from it.
Well, it does. If you look at the movie, it's like, what could somebody have done to keep all of this stuff from happening? And it seems at the end of it, it's just a kind of like a fatal flaw in a feudal society, is that you will war against each other basically nonstop.
So is this movie saying that Ichimonji and his family are terrible idiots, or is this the story of literally every patriarch in the history of time with every culture?
Yeah, I think it could be literally every patriarch, because the other lords, the allies turned enemies, they were fine until they saw a power vacuum. So they're obviously exactly like Lord Ichimonji used to be. And their families aren't going to turn out better because everybody's doing the same shit to each other.
God,
we just happen to look at this family.
All of these movies always make me think, like, from this to Scarface to Godfather to whatever, they always make me think, always want the top spot but never get it, because that's when you're happiest and you have a goal, and then when you get the top spot, it's nothing but paranoia and, like, falling from grace.
When you're gunning for the top, it makes you hungry and lean, and then the second you achieve that position, you start getting comfortable and people start lying to you. I mean, as we've talked about a couple times in this so far, he surrounds himself with sycophants, and he casts out the people who tell him the truth. Just like somebody,
Again, it has nothing to do with 2020 at all.
No, it's not. It was made a long time ago, and so it couldn't predict any of this stuff.
People are telling me that it has nothing to do with 2020. But, stupid idiots, this is not Ichimonji's story. Is it Lady K's story? Is Lady K the protagonist, the antagonist, the chaos, the person we root for, the person we root against? Is this all about her?
Yes, because here's the difference between 85 and now. I could see audiences in 85 hating her character.
I'm so sorry, Mike, to interrupt, but could you do a little Lady K character arc before you dive into this?
Oh, sure. So when we meet her, she feels very Lady Macbeth, where she's just telling her husband, who's the eldest son who was just handed the reins, she's like, all right, now take all the power. You have most of it. Push your dad out. Make it in writing that we should be in power, that he has no say in everything. I know that was a handshake contract. Now we need to make it real legal. and you're like, oh man, she seems awful. And then once he dies, she gets with the second brother, and to the point where she's like, kill your other wife. I can't be fucked, so I can't know that there's another woman alive who you fucked.
I'll be so sad. I will fall to the ground crying if you don't kill your ex-wife, current wife.
And she constantly pulls other people's swords and knives on them, which is when you're like, wait, this lady might be awesome. And then in one of her monologues, she's like, well, you killed my whole family and then married me, so why would I be anything but hateful towards you?
What? That's all. That's great. I just want to make one correction because it's crazy to think of. It's not you killed my whole family and married me. It's you married me, and so or you had one of my like your dad had me marry you, and then because of that, my brothers and father thought that there's no way he would fucking attack them. And when he realized that they thought that, he fucking attacked them and put them all to the sword and killed everybody. And that castle that she's like returning to, as she says, that she was driven out of that by that action. Like this guy was like a monster, just an absolute warlord monster.
But I mean, not like historically awful, like sort of the same amount of awful that anybody in this position would be, right?
I think he's the strong man that has existed across cultures. You know, I mean, I think that the reason that Freud talked about Shakespeare's plays as like foundational to understanding his theories is because part of what he wanted to talk about was how a lot of civilizations are collected under one man who is getting everything that he wants, and that the beginning of real governance is a bunch of people gathering together and saying, we want to take the things that this one man has. And so I think why this story endures through Lear, which is like, Shakespeare's not even the first person to write about King Lear. Like Shakespeare was like, you know, like the fifth person to write about King Lear. It endures because there are people who feel like there needs to be a strong man, and a lot of times they are themselves strong men, and so they will put themselves into position.
I mean, I wonder how many people who voted for Trump not because they liked him or his policies, but just somehow like subconsciously know that part of history and say
100%. Yeah,
it has to be a bastard, and this is our bastard.
It started that's what happened in Russia with Putin. Russia felt humiliated, and Putin said, I will be your strong man. Look at me without my shirt on. Look at me playing hockey. You can feel my strength, and that strength is Russia's strength. And people look at America, and they thought that it was white middle-aged people felt like America looked weak, and for whatever reason, Trump convinces them that he's actually strong.
Let's get this weakest person in the world.
The biggest coward in the history of the country.
Soft jelly man.
But because he knows that the trick is you just say that whatever you're not, you just say that you are that, and enough people will believe you because people are fools. So they thought, yeah, that's what they wanted. They wanted a strong man.
And not fools in the classic Shakespearean sense. Like just fucking stupid.
No.
Yeah, that like actually know things and tell everybody what's going on if anyone would just listen
Make
to
up
them.
fun songs and make people sing them louder and louder.
So Lady K is a big part of the story, although doesn't have the most amount of screen time. I think that she's the perfect combination of when we were talking about performances of like this is the one that you guys agreed on of like big but nuanced but awesome and intriguing and doesn't feel like playing to the back of the crowd. Was she the queen of the movie in that like when she was off screen you were just wanting her back? Like was she the most intriguing, compelling part?
I think the whole movie is kind of like a trick. I think that you're supposed to think that the movie is about him, and it's so that you don't know that it's about her. It's like how in the beginning of Psycho, it's got who's the actress that's in Psycho?
Oh yeah, yeah. Anyway,
big famous actress dies like right away, and it's a big secret. Like it's a big because then you don't know
Drew
what the
Barrymore.
Jane Lynch. But I think it's the same thing with this. I think we're not supposed to. We can't see her coming because it doesn't work if we see her coming, and so the movie buries the fact that she's the protagonist.
But it's also, I like that you brought up Game of Thrones earlier because it's not. She has the most interesting arc, but I think it really is just about this family and dynasty because it's kind of episodic, and so the Lord gets the most time, but each son gets his role, and Tango gets his, and the Fool gets his. So it really is just like here's this society and how it all clicks together.
Oh yeah,
the Fool would definitely be the other one that like there are moments in this movie where it definitely feels like it is about the Fool and like him wanting to be able to walk away and just being totally unable to and being as imprisoned as Toro is, because he can't leave this guy even though he wants to so bad. It makes him cry, and then he just comes back.
It's crazy with modern American movies. You think that the longer they are, the more horses and battles they have to do, the less it can be an ensemble piece. And there's a lot of horses in this movie. There's a lot of bows and arrows, but how ensemble-y it is, Make sure that the fool gets that moment where he tries to leave and then lays down next to his master or whatever you want to call it. Like, everyone gets 2 or 3 moments in this cast of, like, I know 1,600, but really, like, 14 people. Like, everyone has 2 or 3 moments.
And that's why it's so nice that he is so good at, like, reminding us who everybody is, because then you can really sit on those moments. I feel like it wasn't until I watched it a second time, which I really love watching these movies twice before we do the podcast. Watching it the second time, I realized how hand-holdy the movie was, but there's so much going on the first time that I did sometimes get a little confused as to who was whom, but you watch it again, and it's just like, he will always put a big arrow. Like, this is that guy from earlier, remember?
I would like, though, that if every time they came on screen, there was, like, a little pause, and the name came up, and then underneath it was, like, their mutant power, and then one, like, quippy line underneath. All right, we're almost out of time, so there's one more person that we have to bring up. The only thing that's almost as hacky as saying, is Japan a character in this movie? Watching this movie, it's sort of, and then, like, knowing his age, knowing how many black and white movies of his I've seen, so to, like, see a color one is weird. Is Kurosawa the main character? Is this his Unforgiven? Is this him reckoning with his movies of the past, of all of the heroes that he's propped up that probably weren't heroic, and then sort of trying to figure out how he is going to organically give, the torch to the next generation? And I know that, like, it's easy to watch a movie and say, like, oh, it's about the director. It's obviously about the director, but the last shot that we've already talked about, the blind guy, like, dropping the scroll and about to die, and having him, probably the most minor character of the ensemble, have the last shot, Kurosawa being blind, like, all of this sort of seems like with a reckoning with my filmography, and not guilt, but, like, coming to terms with what my filmography is.
And maybe some guilt in there too, Ryan. I mean, if he is really thinking about, like, a culture decimated by violence, then maybe he does sort of, like, interrogate his own role in glorifying that violence a little bit. And the movie I thought about, it was hard not to, was Mishima, right? What made the author Mishima, like, be so invested in samurai and Bushido culture? Is there any chance that, at least in part, one small degree, was that he grew up watching Kurosawa movies? And if so, then, like, his fetishizing of action for action's sake, this is a world that is imprisoned by action for action's sake. It's also like Game of Thrones in a way, in that anytime, like, a castle can be taken in this world, it gets taken, and that's just action, and it's not valuable. It's not valuable in the same way that taking that military base and then Mishima killing himself wasn't really valuable. It's not just always better to do something instead of nothing.
It makes me wish there was a heaven and hell, because that old man did not suffer enough.
No way.
I mean,
he suffered for a week of his life.
Yeah.
So fuck that.
And he spent the whole fucking time feeling so sorry for himself. I mean, that's really the way in which he reminds me of modern times. It's just a monstrous person just absolutely feeling so bad for themselves. Nobody likes me. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, exactly. Nobody likes me. Yeah, nobody likes you because you're a fucking monster.
But, like, yeah, anytime that the movie maybe catered to him too much, which happens sometimes, but I wouldn't, like, accuse the movie of doing that, or his sycophants did, which that happened a lot. I just kept thinking of his face walking through that burning castle, and I felt better. Like, your sons are dipshits, but this is on you, bro. All right, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, trivia.
Well, that is very, very funny, or very sad, and perhaps now you have something to think about, or very problematic, and perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to. So why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody, keep watching them movies.
Trivia. Gentlemen, it's trivia time. This is where most of the points happen. Anytime that we have a show that doesn't have trivia, you guys score like 11 or 10 points. But now you're about to get 40 or 50. So here we go.
Nice.
Wait till the end of the question before you ring in. You ring in by saying your name. Number 1. Akira Kurosawa's wife of 39 years, Yoko Yaguchi, died during the production of this film. How many days did production shut down because of this?
Mike.
Greg.
Mike?
1.
Mike.
That is correct. That's how sad Kurosawa gets. Which other movie of the year movie begins with characters hunting a boar and then near destruction of civilization?
Mike.
Mike.
Princess Mononoke?
Princess Mononoke.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically the same movie. Which idea from Succession has enlivened up pop filter meetings like no other?
Greg.
Greg.
Boar on the floor.
It's boar on the floor. Do you guys are you
Yeah.
into it? Do you like it?
Man, it's so fun. I don't find it demeaning. That's the bad. Like to me, that's actually fun.
What does the word Ron translate to in English?
Mike.
Mike.
Run.
Nope.
Greg.
Greg.
Chaos.
Chaos is
Oh,
correct.
that's fucking awesome.
Dude, that is fucking dope.
So what would
what a hard movie, man.
what would Kurosawa call the gems Sonic the Hedgehog is trying to get?
Mike.
Mike.
Ron Gems?
Incorrect.
Greg.
Greg.
The Ron Jewel. Ron the Jewels?
Fast, please. Ron the Jewels fast. No, it's Ron Emeralds. Name the 3 primary colors.
Greg.
Greg.
Red.
Yeah.
Yellow.
Yeah.
Blue.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Edge of my seat on that.
So easy. So easy for me. Now do shapes.
Name the star of the movie Primary Colors.
Greg.
Greg?
Richard Gere.
Incorrect.
Oh.
Mike.
Mike?
Matthew Modine.
always a good guess. It's John Travolta. That was the one where he played Clinton. You guys don't remember that?
Yes. Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
If Primary Colors became a Broadway musical and the star of Primary Colors chose the lead of the musical, who would he pick?
Wait, the star of the movie Primary Colors? I'm trying to understand the question here.
The star of the movie Primary Colors, John Travolta, chose the
Travolta.
star of the Broadway musical. Who would he pick?
Mike.
Mike.
John Travolta.
Incorrect.
I have no idea.
Adele Dazeem. Who directed Primary Colors?
Mike.
Mike.
Adele Dazeem.
Incorrect. Greg?
John Travolta.
Incorrect. It's Mike Nichols. Name the type of currency that certain members of Pop Filter have felt we should exclusively use.
Greg.
Mike.
Greg.
Mike Nichols.
Mike Nichols. What's a Mike Nickel worth?
Mike.
Mike.
About 5 cents.
Nope. Greg?
Greg. About 5 Mike cents.
Oh, so close. It's 2 Mike pennies. Kurosawa was nominated for his only Oscar for this movie, but lost it to who?
Oh, shit.
I'll give you a hint. We did not do this movie in
Mike.
1985. Yeah.
Whoever directed Out of Africa.
That is correct. I'm giving it to you.
Nice.
Mike.
Sidney Pollack. Can you guys wait to get out of Africa?
Greg.
Greg,
No, I just can't wait to get out of Africa.
do you know why? What's the reason?
Why I can't wait to get out of Africa?
Yeah.
Because it's the titular line of that movie.
Yeah, but there's too much of something in Africa.
Greg.
It's traffic. There's too much traffic. What is the name of the Kurosawa film that gave us a term we still use today?
Mike.
Mike.
The Seven Samurai.
Oh, I'm always saying that for sure, but that's incorrect. Anybody else?
Not me, thanks.
Okay. I'm not sure what it is. We're all just gonna remember it differently, so there's no point in even bringing it up.
Oh, Rashomon.
What is the name of the 1992 remake of this movie starring Kurt Russell and Martin Short?
What?
Greg.
Greg.
The Three Amigos.
Incorrect.
No, wait, Greg.
Hold on.
Mike.
Yeah.
Escape from New York.
Incorrect. Greg.
Shit, okay, I really do know it. Greg. Captain Ron.
Captain Ron is correct.
Yeah.
Speaking of
That
Captain,
movie taught me the difference between the word gorillas and the word gorillas. Thank you, Captain Ron. Oh, also that movie's not rated R, but there's nudity in it.
nice. That
Yeah.
should be a
There's
podcast dedicated
There's
to
boobies
that.
in there.
Speaking of captains, what is the name of the 1986 short film that gave us the term CEO?
Mike.
Mike.
Captain EO.
Captain EO, that is correct. CEO stands for Captain EO. Back to Ron sequels. This 2018 prequel to Ron starred Alden Ehrenreich as which major character?
Greg.
Mike.
Greg.
Ron Solo.
Ron Solo. What was the name of the Ron sequel that took place almost entirely inside of a video game?
Mike.
Mike.
Tron. T-Ron.
To Ron. Yeah, that's it.
To Ron.
I'll give it to you.
That's a tough one.
This sequel to Ron wrote Dianetics.
Greg.
Greg.
L. Ron Hubbard.
That is correct. Translate L. Ron Hubbard from Japanese to English.
Greg.
Mike.
Greg.
L. Chaos Hubbard.
That is correct. Translate L. Ron Hubbard from Spanish to English.
Mike.
Mike.
The Ron Hubbard.
The Ron Hubbard. That is correct. With Kurosawa's Ron, does that mean we have finally watched a good movie for Movie of the Year having to do with the word Akira?
Greg.
Greg.
How dare you? How
Mike,
dare
do-
you?
Mike.
Do you wanna-
Yes.
That is correct,
Yes.
Mike. We finally have done it. That is trivia. You guys both cleaned up and probably tied. When we come back, let's get back to Ron.
You'll regret what you said about Akira.
Most of Kurosawa's masterpieces were in black and white. Does Ron prove the theory that I just made up that Kurosawa should have stuck to that because he doesn't know shit about color?
No.
No.
I think... No, Ron does not disprove. Prove that? Disprove it. Shut
I
up.
thought the use of color was wonderful.
Thank
in
you.
this
That's what I was
movie.
trying to say.
Not just because it was, it helped us understand who everybody was, but I also felt like the way in which the three sons and their respective colors were at times blended in the garments of Toro, and then sometimes like they oftentimes are the same colors as the colors that the Fool wears.
It's a little Blezzy Cripsy. Like, you got to have some piece of that color on you at all times.
Yeah.
Well, there's that, which I do love. And there's also, like, it is the very, like, I'm learning what literature is, middle school, that each color means something, where the oldest son is yellow and does kind of suck and is cowardly and dies first. The middle son is more of a firebrand and he's red. And the blue son is the calmest of them.
Well, the blue sun means that the world is ending. Like, get the fuck out of town. If the sun turns blue, like, we're all going to fucking
And
die.
the yellow sun is where Toro's getting all his powers from.
Yeah.
Right?
Unless kryptonite comes, then he's fine.
And I know that-
I looked this
that
up, and yellow in here in America means cowardly, and courage in Japan.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I know
Because he
that
did not seem courageous.
I think in Japan, white is the color of mourning. And I thought there was a lot of interesting use of white. You know, we see the main guy, like, sort of like his whole skin and hair become very white, but his garment also becomes white. And there's scenes where he sits on basically barren rock that is, like, very bright white. So white, in fact, that if you were to put white subtitles over it, it's kind of hard to see what you're
One
saying.
could imagine that would be difficult to read in
I-
that section.
a
Well,
lot
that
of
like
movies-
that sort of speaks to Kurosawa's awesomeness, though, right? Is that you can't pick the same color of subtitle for the entire movie. At some point,
Yeah.
there will be that color blocking it.
You
Just
just have
have
to
a bright
change.
green.
Just have that one scene where you can read the words.
Or
Yeah,
do
with-
my
with-
dream, which is word bubbles. Have word bubbles
Yes.
above
Just
everybody's
comic book
head.
style. If White's mourning, Lady Sway and her brother are also in white every time we ever see them.
Mhm.
Before you,
But so's Lady K.
Yeah, but her mourning is angry, but she's still mourning. Like,
She wakes up on the wrong side of the bed.
she became this angry, bitter murderer because her real life was ripped away from her.
Right.
Also, like, she doesn't hide it as much as people just don't pay any attention to her.
For sure.
But like she's in that castle with her husband for like 1 hour before she's like, "Hey, you know, I grew up here, and it was really painful to leave and come back.
We came back.
I'm mad at your dad." And he's
In
just
cla-
like, "I feel bad. Sorry,
Yeah,
dude."
isn't it great? He lives in the attic.
Yeah.
Nothing bad will come from this.
In classic, like, Shakespearean, like, Kurosawa-ian fools and right-hand men, like, I don't think they're saying, like, bitch, you're whipped, you better slap that girl. They're straight up saying, I know that I'm, in your charge and that you're my master, my leader, but what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, this isn't about,
Yeah.
like, spending too much time with that girl. Like, she's crossing lines here.
But the red brother, the middle brother, after the oldest brother dies,
Hero.
his right-hand man, even if he is warning him against a real threat, he uses the language of bros. He does tell him.
He does, yeah.
He says no man should ever have a woman tell him when he should go to war. And he's like, I should go see her before we go to fight. He's like, you fucking pussy. Like, he could have said, here's all the reasons. Here's a very logical argument of what she's obviously doing to destroy your family. Instead, he uses that. Like,
I was just thinking that if you've got a friend like Red, then you have to use the words. If you have a friend like anybody, you have to use the words that will convince them. And that's how you convince Red, is use the bro words, the I subscribe to Maxim words. But it did not work at all.
I mean, and the thing is, like, I think she's able to be under the surface because just nobody really considers that she could have those ulterior motives. I don't know if his friends actually see that she is a danger because they kind of just don't think of women. If anybody thought about what it would be like to be her for 1 second, they would be like, man, I wonder if she's a danger to us because we are in her ancestral home after we have murdered her family. But they don't, and so they don't see the danger.
He should know because when it's just the two of them, he's obviously afraid of her because the first time they make out, she has pulled a sword and a knife on him. And then they make out and then they fuck. Like, so he should know, but he still has that male arrogance.
Well,
like,
remember the first scene where they're like, hey, fool, do a little, like, show for us. And the first thing he does
The truffle shuffle.
Yeah, he looks off to one mountain, and then they see where he's looking, and they're all surprised, and they look off to that mountain. And then he does the same thing a second time, and they're equally surprised a second time. These are not very, like, subtle political beings. They're mostly used to just charging at each other and stabbing at each other. So when there's any sort of subterfuge, like Hero, he doesn't understand what she's doing. Like, as soon as they fuck, she starts screaming, crying about how he has to kill his wife. Like, and he's just like, oh man, I gave her the dick so good that now she thinks my wife has, oh no. And even though she is broadcasting that she's playing him, he's just kind of like, yeah, well, I guess that happens once they get a taste of Hero. It's just, they can't go back.
I mean, as far as the women go, like, one of Kurosawa's things that he said about, like, doing King Lear is that he was very far in the script, and then he sort of started to lean towards Lear. But the whole idea of having it be 3 daughters at this time that he wanted to write about is insane and laughable. Like, there's no way that these daughters of, the patriarch could have received land or ever been listened to or heard of. Like, it had to be sons, regardless of when he decided to start turning it into King Lear.
Well, and isn't the kernel of it also there's the Japanese legend, and the Lord Toro is, like, super noble, and he's like, wouldn't it be more interesting if he was a piece of shit and his sons didn't like him? Because that is way more interesting.
Because, yeah, that's sort of like Kurosawa, I don't know if it's meta, but it's like, it's updating Shakespeare and these Japanese legends at the same time of saying, like, we listen to these heroes, these two-dimensional heroes, and just worship them. They weren't two-dimensional. They had personalities, and I'll bet those personalities were awful.
And it's it really is very weird to be like, this guy got a bunch of people together and just murdered his entire life, just murdered everybody around him. And then later you're like, that was a pretty cool dude. He was really good on the battlefield.
Well, you can already see how stuff goes away. And like we think of it like as a Western thing, the way we lionize the army. But like, that is just the history of man. And we start to like, Castor of Troy was probably a real fucking prick, but people are like, but man, could he fight?
Yeah. Like, Alexander the Great, like,
he was a fucking monster. Nero, again, we
Flint
talked about
and Duke and Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe.
Whoa,
no,
not
they were
Snake
real
Eyes.
heroes.
Not Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes is a very cool dude.
He's
guys, being a real American hero means being a true bastard. And then, I mean, we're watching this today, going back to 2020, like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine had to throw away all of the episodes that they've written because we just keep doing this for these, like, allegedly heroic males,
And it's because we do prize that strength. It's very hard to take that away from us, that we have a lot of respect for people who are strong and who bestride the world like a colossus. And it doesn't, even though it comes with all this terrible stuff in addition, it's hard to shake that in us because we're still looking to see who the alpha is and because we're trying to find our place in that hierarchy.
But I thought we grew out of that shit in 7th grade when we realized that this particular type of strength is just weakness and this strength is actually strong.
A great sign that you never grow out of it is that Clint Eastwood did make Unforgiven in the early
Yeah.
90s, and then he's
And
still
then made
current day
American
Clint
Sniper.
Eastwood. Like,
Yeah,
he still is
That-
who he is.
that's fucking weird. Yeah, that's hard to deal with. Of like, I don't know if it's. I still just want to give the people what they want. Like, is he treating us like puppets? Because the movie made $200 million in theaters. Or is he saying, I already did my Unforgiven. I've done my penance. I picked up my litter. Now I can just go back to what I actually want to do.
No, I think he just outlived it. I think that
Yeah.
there was a time where he was reflecting on his life and realizing like the kind of things that he helped to support and be a part of and the kind of stories he helped to tell. And then I think he just got crazy old guy brain after that. And that's why Shakespeare, like, we consider The Tempest the end of Shakespeare. He broke his staff. He buried his books. That's why this movie is kind of like the end of Kurosawa, because it's like putting something to bed before I'm too old to still say it in the way that it needs to be said.
Well, he broke his staff, right? Because it was fake. Wasn't it a false staff?
Ryan.
All right, gentlemen, it's speed round. Do not have to ring in here. Just shout it out. Be rude
Mike.
to each other, but not to me. After watching this movie, has the flute now replaced the sax as the most annoying instrument?
Well, this movie really highlights how it sounds like a wailing person. That the scene where the guy who had his eyes gouged out plays it, and it like assaults the King Lear figure, like that. I felt that because that really did sound like all the wailing of his victims.
And I think when you are like an ostracized hermit at a society, I'd be surprised if you were naturally great at an instrument. So I think there could be a beautiful flute. I just don't think this kid's got it.
It's weird, like how different instruments hit you. Like bass drum or bass, like sort of hits you in the gut. You can just feel it before you even hear it. Whereas it really feels like this flute goes directly into your ears with a knife and just
It
starts
feels sharp,
chopping
like an
away.
arrow
Yeah.
or a katana.
Like
According
any
to the
neighbor,
Bare Naked Ladies, Kurosawa made mad films, many of which include a samurai. How does this intertextual commentary help us understand Ron?
I don't know
Mike.
if it does.
Damn it. I keep forgetting that even though you told us we don't have to say her name. I think mad can be so many meanings, Ryan. And here mad is that there's a lot of angry characters, but it's also the Lord is going mad. And so they were
I thought
right.
mad here
It was
meant
Canadian.
dope.
I think mad means many. Like he's
Yeah,
gonna make a
he
bunch
made a
of
lot of
films.
samurai films.
And I feel like that's just so
Ah.
reductive. Like Kurosawa made more than just mad films. He made art, everybody.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Thank you for
But
stepping up and
inarguable
finally saying that.
That if the guys from Bare Naked Ladies made a Kurosawa type film, they would have samurais.
They're an okay band, but they clearly rode on the idea of the fact that Bare Naked Ladies looks good on a poster all the way to like a greatest hits album. The Bare Naked Ladies have a greatest hits album.
Is it just 1 week 1,000 times?
It's been Bare Naked Ladies.
Speaking of Bare Naked Ladies, I saw a billboard for a local strip club
Mhm.
that said, "We're still open." What are they doing right now? Like, is everybody masked and
Yes.
social distancing and?
Oh my god, that's horrifying.
Yeah, social distancing lap dances.
I do have to say though, like I am worried for like the dancers. Like I guess I am worried for them. So I'm glad that they still are able to work. But gosh, that seems dangerous.
I think it was Texas that had drive-through strip clubs 2-song maximum.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like you gotta. I guess some people like cannot like not have the strip club as an option. So the drive-through
It's their
makes
therapy.
sense. I worry about breathing all over someone who's like dancing in your lap.
Hold your breath. If your product cannot be placed in a drive-thru, then it probably shouldn't be a product. In fact, I want Pop Filter to have a drive-thru where people come in, we just scream at them about
Our
pop
takes.
culture for like
Just
2 minutes.
30-second clips.
Get them out
They
of
get
here.
to order from the giant menu.
I think I want to listen to Greg speechify for about 30 seconds. All right, I'll try to keep it short.
The time that Mishima wanted Japan to return to was already ancient history by the setting of this film. That is, I cannot believe that. Like, this was this was too liberal for him. He wanted to return to a more conservative time.
Yeah, that's the
That's
thing.
wild because this feels like from the mists of yore. This feels like pre-history, ancient
yeah, well,
legend.
okay, but it's like the 16th century, and so like I mean they have gunpowder. They're already riding around on horses and everything.
Yeah.
Like at this point, the emperor was like a guy that if you were in power, the shogun would probably like have access to the emperor. But all the emperor did was like hang out and be chill. Like at this point, the emperor had not been in charge of Japan. I don't know a lot about this, so I guess I could be wrong. But I don't think the emperor had been in charge of Japan for like a really long time. I don't know how much time the emperor was ever actually really in charge of Japan. but it would certainly be like, 1,600 years before this movie even came around. It was
so many years.
Japan went through a period where it was just warlords attacking each other until it was formed under the, I think, Tokugawa shogunate, and so it was civil wars like this for a really long time.
I just think real quick, let me finish this question. It's crazy that we had Mishima and then Ron in the same season. We got to watch this. How does watching this movie complicate the picture that Mishima had of the warrior past? He was like this liberal, in some ways, but traditionalist. I thought it was far nearer than this. How does that complicate things?
What's interesting, it shows how little thought and nuance we put on our historical legends, because he only thought of it as that hero. He didn't think if this is closer to how it was historically, he didn't think about it as a complicated scenario at all. So it does show we're all simple creatures at times and just take stories at face value.
And I mean, he was taking brutality and treating it like chivalry. He was completely making up an imaginary time that he wanted to return to, and it was just this Arcadian dream of when we were better than we are now, and it's just it's folly. And it's because he thought action was so much more important than words, even if it was just this random ass action. And I feel
just
this
some
movie
action,
really,
just do one action.
Yeah, and in a way that's human, right? We want stimulus more than anything else. Nothing is worse for us than no stimulation. So action is better than that. But this movie condemns just wanton action.
Mm-hmm. Because, that's European knights, that's cowboys. All these people were fucking dickhead monsters, and they're who culture glorifies.
But see, a couple of things there. One, I like going back and rethinking all of this stuff and saying, this is what it meant then, this is what it meant when I was a kid, this is what it means now, times have changed. That's interesting to me. And then also, when we talk about cancel culture and how it's gone too far, what we don't talk about is all the people who make it through every cancel culture. Instead of saying everyone's out to point fingers and destroy everyone, we've just given a name to standing the test of time, or not standing the test of time rather. There's everybody else who is not canceled because they stood the test of time, and their morals, their ethics, their performance, their way of life is classic and modern, and it does it all. When we're canceling all these people, it actually doesn't hurt you. It doesn't hurt you at all when John Wayne gets canceled. It does not affect your life at all. And then you also get to think about all of these other tropes or fictional characters that do still stand up.
And getting canceled, so does that mean you can't talk about John Wayne with other people, even if you've decided fuck cancel culture? You can still watch his movies. You're just mad that other people will say, what if we put some nuance and context here?
You're mad that people don't think the way you think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so much of an internet argument. It's just, don't think the way you think the way I want you to. And I'll use, argumentative violence to make that happen if that's what it takes.
And we don't do that here. On the podcast, Greg gave this movie an A+, I gave it an A, Mike gave it an A-. This is so many different opinions coming in to have a thorough discussion, Last one. This movie is obviously epic and rad and powerful, but is it also kind of boring sometimes? Is it to watch horses run around for 2 straight minutes? Was there a time where you guys looked at your phone in this movie?
Yeah, dude. Okay, I feel the troop movements, I get it, right? That's cool. It's impressive. Not everything that's really hard to do is always as visually exciting.
That's the director's folly right there.
And remember when we saw Come and See, the way if troops were moving, we sort of moved through them. There wasn't enough of that in this. In Come and See, it felt like you were part of the machinery of this moving group of people. On this, it feels like, hey, on that hill way over there, there's a bunch of people assembling. And it looks cool, but then it's wait, has this been going on for 3 minutes? Is this just horses running through a river?
Well, I think Come and See wanted to ruin war movies forever, and Ron wanted to celebrate war movies forever.
Or have it kind of both ways. Be you're right, Come and See, but also this is pretty neat if you think about it.
Ron's kind of well, the leaders suck, but aren't these guys dope? Look at what they're doing.
Everyone's got a flag on their back. Isn't that pretty cool?
I love when movies call other movies by their movie title. What's up, Come and See? I'm Ron, and here's what I want to say to you right now.
Dude, 85 feels I know every year is that way, but 85 feels like these movies are all hanging out in a lounge talking to each other. It really, more than any other year.
Yeah, even though some of them started 10 years before 85,
Yeah.
some of them 1 year, 2 years. Yeah,
Some of them deal with things that happened 10 years before. Some of them deal with things that happened 200 years before.
But yeah, ultimately, I do think that if you spend a bunch of money and time on horses or soldiers or finding the perfect green hill, then you fucking film that and you hope people think of it like you do.
I do think it's something that shows his age. I think that there is a way in which, in parts of this movie, he's saying, like, I can't perfect the breeze on the blades of grass. I can't make anything as beautiful as that. So if I can try to capture it, like a beautiful blue sky with clouds and the breeze bestirring the grass, I'm going to show that. And if I have to lean on it, I'm going to, because I'm fucking an old man and I can see the value in this now that maybe you younger, hot bloods don't.
I'm motherfucking Kurosawa, and you will do what I say. There's one
just
story
trust
I
me.
read where when the patriarch and Sue are on the mountain, this is the first time that they interact that we see, and they shot it, and the sky looked 98% perfect. And then they got it, and they all packed it in, and they were done for the day. And then the cloud shifted a little bit, and it was the exact right gray that he could possibly imagine.
Uh-huh.
And he just grabbed his the megaphone. He was like, "Unpack it. We're doing it again." And then
Man.
he gets a lot of credit for he has this legend of being able to control the weather and making it perfect. But he'll just sit there and film over and over and over again until the background is. He can't actually control weather, is what I'm saying. If you actually thought that was true.
But if you're patient enough as a filmmaker, you can, though, because if you can wait for it,
right? And if you have the legend in the name to get actors to keep going back to do it, that is the speed round.
Shot.
And you don't. I knew there's no way that I could say that Hamilton thing and not have that happen. We're gonna take a break, and then it's the awards, the final chance for you guys to get points. It's awards time, folks. As we talked about before, Kurosawa was nominated for Best Director at the Oscars for this movie. Lost to Sidney Pollack, who, do you guys know which movie of the year he was in?
Yeah, he's in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, he's the lawyer that says to Tom Cruise, don't worry about it, baby.
And he's
just fucking kill hookers. It doesn't
yeah,
matter.
and probably the center of everything. We talked about his shots where he makes the same movements in that scene where he's playing pool that the guy that's the head of the orgy makes.
The first award, Mike, is Most Epic Samurai Moment. Who should take this down?
There's a moment where the Lord, he is halfway crazy. He's not full crazy yet, but he's not full. Nobody will accept him. But it's in the middle of that, and he walks out. He's been kicked out of, I think, his second castle, and everybody still backs away from him.
Yeah,
the whole army who has swords is still scared shitless of this old guy in his dotage, and that's pretty samurai, man.
this is when he's leaving the second castle, and they his men are locked outside, and he says throw the gate. Oh my god, dude! What I like about those shots is they're not perfectly aligned. And the camera, you can feel it shifting so that the shot is perfectly in line. And there's something about that moment where it lines itself up that's very endearing. They're
it finds
something about a great shot. It can be antiseptic, So sometimes when you see the shot come in, and Kurosawa does move the camera a lot, and so those little movements, that is and him in front of those big freaking doors. Damn, dude, that is such a cinematic moment.
He just doesn't want to move it in. He wants to have as much in the frame as possible. So he moves it, out, but never in. That thing, too, when he was walking out, Red stepped up behind him, and it was clearly a Western duel. He was clearly shooting that as if it was, in that dirt road between saloons. That's a good one. The other thing I love about this movie, too, is that it's I was just following orders movie, but it doesn't deal with the complications of that. It's what happens when I will follow orders. I just don't know whose orders to follow.
Yeah.
And so everyone's confused running around saying, who is leading? Just let me know.
And that, you need someone who's a good boss to give the orders. It's not a worker's job to question the orders. It's a boss's job to be a good boss.
Greg, samurai
for
moment.
me, you might see a little theme in these awards, but for me, it's the Lady K scene. She is fighting with a weapon that none of them fight with, which is political
Vagina.
Influence. Even more than her sexuality, she's using political leanings that nobody else does. And it starts the scene where Hiro comes back and he's got the armor of Taro. and she like yells at him about wearing it, and so it shames him, and he takes it off, and then she goes to like give back the armor and say I was wrong, and so now he's not in armor, and she gets him to dismiss his court, and then manages in like just moments to be standing over him with a sword, and the way she wields it, it's like, oh yeah, she's also trained in a sword, and she could probably kill this guy any time. And you realize, wait a minute, that's like the moment where you realize she's the most badass person in this entire movie. Like, she is the true samurai of this movie. Nobody hold the candle to her. She's the most focused, driven, dangerous person in the movie.
And I think that scene also speaks to the fact that, like, to the big performances, like, Lady K is the only one who has the big performances, but the camera lingers for 1 extra second, so we can see her, like, not really smile, but, like, wait for reaction, because it's, like, they're performing in movie.
Right.
Everyone is acting big to trick and manipulate the characters around them, and Lady K is really the only one that, like, doesn't seem like they're on a stage, but everything the old man does is, I have to act like this, so I guess I will.
And she's doing it to get what she wants.
Right. That's a good one, Greg. Nice job. Greg, you are Shake That Spear. What was the most Shakespearean moment of the movie?
So for me, it is just the pacing of some of the scenes. So let me give you an example. When they used to stage Shakespeare's plays, characters would be like saying the last lines of a scene walking off stage, and the characters in the next scene would come walking on at the same moment saying lines. Like, they ran these things in like under an hour. Like, characters spoke as quickly as they could, and they got everything out. And
it's very Altman-esque.
Some of the pacing of the scenes is just like from the moment Saburo says like, "You're a fool, father," until he is banished for all time is like seconds. From the moment Lady K decides that she's going to try to take over like Hero and make the jump from Taro to Hero, she goes through that entire thing all the way from like, here is your armor back, all the way to you have to kill your wife now. Just like, it's like warp speed. And that pacing is I think this movie really harkening back to the pacing of like King Lear. This dude splits his kingdom, and people are like, ooh, King Lear, is that a good idea? And he's like, I guess we'll see. And before he can finish saying that, he's been exiled from 2 different houses.
I mean, the first part of King Lear is like, all right, ladies, daughters, come, unroast
yeah,
me.
dude,
like,
honey
roast me. And we already know that Cordelia is the favorite, and Cordelia is like, I can't and I won't. And he's like, fuck you, get out forever. We're done. The relationship's just changed on a dime. Or a Mike Nickel, if you prefer to call it that. Mike, what do you got?
Mine is also scene work, but kind of the opposite. Is there's a few times, or a bunch of times, where scenes end and they freeze in and like zoom in, and like it's when you're waiting for the house lights to go down and the actors just aren't moving. The 2 real big call-outs are after the Lord banishes Saburo and Tango, he turns his back and nobody moves. They all just freeze for like 6 straight seconds, and then the scene continues on. And then later, when the Lord is dying and Saburo and the fool find him, they have a bunch of other guards with them, and then it zooms in, and all the guards are just gone. And the real emotional scene is only with these 3 characters who have even though you know the guards are there, but it's like, okay, everybody else has left the stage, and the people who matter are what we're actually focusing on.
So it falls somewhere in between Paul Schrader's like, this is a stage, and Come and See's, this is real life.
Right.
It's like this middle ground. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Mike.
What about cringiest moment? What was the time where Kurosawa like sent shivers up your spine?
For me, it's something that bothers me more and more in movies. There's not a lot of cringy stuff in this, but the way they ride horses in this movie, I really don't like. The actors rode the fucking hell out of these horses, and horses go down a lot in this movie. They're falling basically constantly. There's a part where they're running horses through a river where one horse falls, and it clearly causes like 6 different horses to fall. Some of those horses were destroyed because of that. And even when guys are just on top of their horses in this movie, they are like riding them with such a heavy hand. And it's, for a movie that's about how like violent and terrible we are, it like stood as like a constant reminder, like the cow that got killed and Come and See, like that this movie's kind of made with cruelty, even though it's about cruelty and critiques it.
Mike?
I thought the treatment of Lady Sway in the film, where it's kind of built up that she's the one gentle force in the Lord's life. Like, he's like, oh, I got to talk to her. and it feels like she could be an interesting other angle because everybody else is different like parts of violence, and she's barely in the movie and then dies towards the end. And it's like, wait, why would you build her up and not have this very different point of view matter?
Mike.
Yeah, if you stop at the halfway point with this movie, you think that, there's like 6 angles, and all of them are going to get equal treatment. And at the end of the movie, it's just like, oh, if you act like her, you're so fucked.
Yeah.
Like, you're so fucked. You're naive and you're stupid and you have faith, and that's all.
Well, I think the movie prepares you to like find a redemptive quality in her belief system, and then I think it just at the end he just says that's not the world that we live in. Yeah, that would be nice, but if she is protected by her faith, it comes in the moments earlier in the movie where she like doesn't have a grudge. She hasn't let her life be destroyed by the fact that people tend to harbor this darkness in them. But it's not going to save her physically, because that's not the goal. That's not what religion does, save us physically, right? It saves us emotionally and spiritually, and so physically we're still fucked.
And then in the meantime, it's still a movie-ass movie, because she says, "Oh, blind brother, you don't have your flute. I'll go get it for you."
And he's like,
and the audience is like, "Oh, come on."
He's like, "Please don't get, like, honestly, I'm not even very good at it. Don't do this." And she's like, "No, I'll just leave you standing here on the side of a cliff, and I'll go grab your flute. Here, take this scroll of Buddha. You'll be fine."
Shit, this might be the most important question I've ever asked you, Mike. What is Kurosawa's director's signature moment in this movie?
I'm going to lift this straight from my wife about when she walked out on this, is during the opening credits, guys sitting on horses forever with nothing happening. This has got to be Kurosawa. And of the ones I've seen, that is, he just really likes those dudes sitting on horses forever.
I can't imagine what you would say, Greg, to not get this point. Like, I can't even fathom what words that would be.
I can't stop seeing this burning castle. That entire scene where it's like he just, to quote Hamilton again, cannot seem to die. Like, he is just waiting. He breaks his sword so he can't commit seppuku. None of these arrows will fucking hit him. His concubines take like 8 different bullets for him. When he walks out, he's so broken they just let him leave, and this castle behind him burns. And it's probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen on film, is just this castle fucking burning.
I mean, so many people talk about him as like the king of weather and how he's obsessed with nature, like on a Malikian or Tolkienian level of just like, all right, you filmed it for a while, let's move on. But with being obsessed with like what physics can do and what the world can do, that includes fire and what it does to buildings, and he holds on to it in a awesome amount of time. That's clearly Greg's point.
Greg.
And if I could take a point away from Mike's wife, I would definitely do it. Greg, pound for pound performance. I'm nervous that we all agree on this one, but go for it.
This one's so hard. I wrote down the guy who plays the lord of the whole thing, but then I was like, it's not him. It's Mako Harada, who played Lady K. She is just doing so much in this, and you can see her trying to be reserved, but her anger coming through so often that she can't keep herself from saying things that she probably shouldn't. There's a moment where she is threatening / seducing Hiro, where she just suddenly bursts into peals of laughter, and I felt myself like wanting to do anything for her. Like, she's so dangerous and scary in that moment, and then she's just suddenly laughing, and then she's just suddenly threatening him again, and it's just like it's so engrossing and so powerful that like you feel like she could step out of the screen and slash at you with that sword, you know?
Mike,
Yeah,
what do you got?
it has to be Mako Harada. She's the only character and showing in her performance that sees the matrix code of their dumb society.
Mm-hmm.
So they all, even the ones who roll their eyes at the rules, still do the rules, and she knows what string to tug to make other people play by the rules and how to circumvent them. It just seems to be a world where nobody would ever just flaunt the rules, so she can do whatever she wants in a godlike way and get away with it.
For sure. That's what I love about being a Democrat or a liberal, is that every single time it's like our opponent is not playing by the rules at all. Like, what are we going to do as far as like still staying in the rules? Like, we must make sure to stay in the rules. And Lady K is like, oh man, not only do I see how you're breaking the rules, but I will break them harder and quicker and smarter than you ever thought of.
dude. Yeah.
without any of the hysterics of some of the bigger performers.
I mean, she is the truest foil, I think, to him in the entire movie, because where he was just action for the sake of action, just do whatever you can, never stop moving, never like contemplate what you're doing to the world. She was like this hard, like just one thing she wanted to do. She had one mission and she would do it no matter what, and she didn't have to live through it, which always makes you more powerful. And all that directed rage, like she's just, you just feel her like burning on the screen every time she's on it.
And she sits and waits and thinks.
Yeah.
Where he's just a creature of action, and I think Lady K knows everything that's wrong with Lady K.
Oh, yeah.
And it won't be broken by it, where he is broken in the movie because he has to start thinking about
she is a sword, like folded over and over and over again and heated up and pounded with a hammer, and that has made her strong, but all that damage has basically just turned her into a weapon, and when the weapon is done, it's like her existence is done.
Mike, Greg.
All right, so the awards tonight are, for Samurai Moment, it is Lady K, just showing up all these dudes, what a samurai actually is. The Shakespeare Moment, Mike, what'd you say for that?
When everyone like, gets
them
out
all
of his way.
freezing. Yeah. No, the Shakespeare was everybody freezing.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody freezing. Right, the staging of the movie. The cringe moment, Mike, what was that?
The film's treatment of Lady Sway.
Lady Sway, right, and how she just sort of like, she starts as an angle and then just is no longer an angle. The director's signature is the filming of the burning castle and thinking that like, that's almost as beautiful as like a placid green hill. And then the performance, we all agree, is Lady K. I tried while watching to like think about how it should be the patriarch, and I think he's doing such a good job. And I think that there is a lot. I think there is an arc. Like I think his craziness is arcing, and he is getting crazier as it goes along. But man, she came in and stole the show.
Yeah, dude, such a powerful. This movie should be called Lady K.
So we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna go over the winner of U2 and the winner of 85. Is it Ron? Or are my sentences weird? We'll find out soon.
Hola, Filterinos. I just wanted to interrupt real briefly and say thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. If you want to support us a little more directly, you can go to patreon.com/yourpopfilter. There, depending on what tier you pick, $1 a month, $5 a month. If you're crazy, anything more than $5 a month, don't do that. You can get extra content. There's extra shows, extra series, behind-the-scenes stuff. You could pay for Ryan to draw you a picture. I can write you a poem. You can get the shirts off our very own backs. All of that and so much more over at patreon.com/yourpopfilter. While you're on the internet, you should check out Shady Monk. He does all the tunes you've been listening to. He's on Bandcamp. He's on Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever kids get their music these days that I'm too old to know. Shady Monk lives there. You can probably follow him on Twitter and Instagram as well. That's Shady Monk. Wherever you get music, check him out.
This is it. We're at the end. It's time to stop the discussion of Ron, probably forever. We might do another Ron show, right? Someday?
Never again.
You're putting your foot down right now.
I think the people are.
It sucks, Greg, because this is a competition. This is a bracket. And now that we know that Mike thought it was like great minus. Is that it? Is that it for the movie?
It generally, whoever likes the movie more, and I liked it more, tends to win. But I don't know. Mike had a pretty good showing. For a movie that he wasn't blown away by, he said a lot of good things about it.
No, but I'm saying, like, can it not win 85 because Mike thought it was classic minus?
Oh, in any other year, I could see this movie like potentially being that second place movie to everybody, and so then it moves in. But it's just, I think that his not being blown away, and I mean, I was blown away by it, but I at this point, I've just been bowled over by 85, and to me, it is still basically a 2-horse race with 2 additional horses that are also very handsome.
I think Greg just was won over again by the glory of cinema. He had forgotten it for years. And it's just...
Honestly, dude, I do think that kind of did happen. If you listen to John Waters talk about movies, he's like, there are no bad movies. Like, movies are great because they're like really big pictures, and it feels good to watch them, and somebody tried like hard to make them. And more, I'm just like, honestly, dude, it's just nice to have movies at all.
Yeah.
But then when they're like perfect.
Recent 85 horror, and I try not to bring up 85 horror.
Makes us very mad for not being on it.
The regular show, yeah, because you guys were not invited, and it's my time to shine. But we had a guest, Sam Weinman, a horror director, and he had a tweet about how, like, if you think of movies as good or bad and that's it, like, what is your life? What are you doing? That's terrible.
Yeah.
They're all sort of awesome in their own way. But I think that Ron just basically opens up the door for Goonies, right? Like, Goonies is going to take this down?
Yeah, it's going to slip right in there.
I don't think it has the ability to like ride in the wake of another movie and make it in. I don't think it has enough on its own, and I don't think it's going to like squeeze in through that. Like, well, we also liked Ron, but I'm so glad we did a Kurosawa movie, and I feel like having it last was also really cool because it I felt like it was speaking to all the other movies that we watched, Mishima and all the other ones.
Breakfast Club.
Yeah. In the meantime, on this show, on the Ron Show, we talked about After Hours 2 or 3 times. Like, these movies are in our veins now.
A movie I forgot existed.
All right, let's get to the scores before we get to Ron. I ended up with 10 points. I do believe that is my new record.
Wow, that's
You're getting better every week, bud.
I think I got 3 points for thinking that Pee Wee Herman should be a Ghostbuster, and neither one of you saying it. And so that's an easy 3 for me right there.
Mm-hmm.
Greg, you scored 30.
Heard my name first. Don't love that.
Is that a lot of points?
Red's tricky.
It's okay. There was trivia. I would say 30 is okay if you like the movie as much as I like. Like, if you really come repping the movie, you should probably do better than 30. So, yeah, I'm bad.
Here's the thing. I think that Mike destroyed on trivia and got most of the awards points, but Greg will always be like, William Shakespeare may have been a person, and every time I hear that, I'm like, points. Give him up. Whoa. So yeah, Mike had 25. You got a lot more.
Well, guess who's eating a chicken dinner tonight? It's me, the winner.
What do I eat?
You want to have some of this chicken dinner?
Oh, thank
you.
Loser,
Yeah.
Chicken boozer. You have to eat
I'm not great at the
chicken.
part where we're supposed to hate each other, Mike.
No, I prefer this too.
I was really rooting for you.
I just keep hating the host.
Boom shakalaka!
All right, so Greg, congratulations. Mike, I think you did a good job too. It did seem like you watched the movie. So many times when you lose, it really seems like you just said, no time for this week. But this week, I
Watch
feel
the
like
Monster
you did watch
Squad
it.
again.
Man, I would crush on that show.
Is the podcast that you need to be on comparing blank to the Monster Squad?
Yes.
And you just watch different movies?
Yes.
So I have to say, I'm really sad that the watching the movies of 85 part is basically over. This was such an astounding year. It was so good. If you had said best year in cinema and then you had said it was 85, I would have thought that it's because you were a huge Back to the Future fan. Now I think it's the best movie in cinema because of a bunch of movies nobody has ever heard of or watches. Like, just really good deep cuts. I mean, like, probably the movie of the year is going to be either like Brazil or Come and See. Like, if it's Brazil, that's the most well-known movie. Like, that we could possibly have it be, I think.
The problem with deep cuts is trying to pitch them to other people throughout the season and be like, watch this great movie. They're like, oh, The Goonies, that's cool. I haven't seen that forever. And you talk about Come and See. They're like, why would I ever watch that? I'm like, no, but did you hear all the good things I said about it? Like,
and their answer is always no. I did not listen to anything that you said.
I was just thinking about the Goonies.
I heard about the part where you said they emotionally destroyed a child, and I was like, I don't know if I want to watch that.
Yeah, but like, it does seem different than any other year. It feels like 04. When we were doing it, it felt great and fun. But looking back on it now, we just watched Mean Girls 8 times. Like, as far as I know, it was just 8 Mean Girls, and that was it.
It's too many.
It has been a crazy year. Patreon subscribers, you guys do have one more show for you where we do review The Color Purple, and that is going to be entered into all of the awards categories. If you do not subscribe, please go and do that. For a measly, paltry $5 a month, you can have so much extra stuff, including... if you're a Patreon listener, stay tuned, and you will get all of the entertainment that we've been doing during quarantine as well, and not talking about Kurosawa for a single second. Guys, it's been a pleasure. It's been a blast. Thank you so much for letting me host. I can't wait for Color Purple. I cannot wait for the awards. Like, it's going to be nuts. Looking at, like, thinking about, like, who's going to win Best Supporting Actress, I have no idea how that's going to go down.
Yeah, the awards, I think, ultimately... the awards are even more exciting than Movie of the Year in some ways because we get to celebrate like the entire season of the show, and I really think that's always so fun because sometimes a movie has no chance to win and it will still like
take an
get like
award
3 or
two.
4 different moodies, and then we get a chance to be like, God, we really enjoyed watching that movie.
My favorite is the montage before every award. We get to see all the best moments. That's great.
And I can't not cry. What is that? I just tear up. It doesn't matter what the montage is about. I just cry. I always cry.
Best pratfalls and you're just sobbing.
Oh my God, they fall so pratty.
For Greg, who tied last week and then decided to come to fucking play and destroy tonight. For Mike, who is allegedly on the show, my name is Ryan, and please keep watching those movies.